You thought you knew everything about Mark Harmon, the face of NCIS for years, right? Well, think again. Just when fans thought they'd heard the last about their favorite agent, a shocking new twist has surfaced. The story we thought we knew is only scratching the surface. The latest update is a game-changer, revealing secrets no one saw coming. Trust me, this is the part of Mark's life that changes everything you thought you knew. What you didn't know about Mark Harmon's hidden struggles. Mark Harmon was the face of NCIS, the strong, unflinching Gibbs that kept us glued to our screens for over 18 seasons. But behind the strength and ever-cool demeanor, another story unfolded, one of struggle, resilience, and pain not spoken about. Behind the scenes, Mark is fighting battles that no one has known about, until now. Suppose you are at the height of your career, a household name, and adored by millions, yet you find yourself in difficult personal, private circumstances that not many would know how to handle. Mark suffered under the burden of his star status, brave for all his fans and colleagues for several years. But away from the cameras, he was fighting numerous physical and emotional setbacks. What exactly was he up against? First, there are the grueling demands on a lead star in a long-running show like NCIS. While viewers were having a good time, Mark's body took the beating. What about those action-intense scenes? They didn't come cheaply. Mark experienced chronic pain through lingering injuries a lot longer than what the audience ever realized. Rumors swirled about health concerns, but few knew the extent of what he went through to just show up on set day in and day out. Why didn't he step back sooner? What had he been hiding from his fans? It wasn't just physical, though. The pressures of holding up the image of the beloved Leroy Jethro Gibbs weighed heavily on him. Think of it. Year after year, the pressure to get the perfect performance out, to live up to the high standard set for some of TV's most recognizable characters. As he once intimated in an interview himself, there's a price to pay for staying in one place too long. But did anybody actually understand what price he was paying? As time and seasons passed, it was easy to see that something was not quite right, though few were able to call their finger on what that was. And here's the clincher. Mark's struggles did not lie only in the times he spent on set. His personal life was kept in wraps, but had its own share of challenges as well. His wife, Pam Dauber, and their 2 sons have always been his rock. But juggling an extremely high-profile career along with the urge to be there as a husband and father, that is a tightrope few can walk. Did he feel himself losing his grip? Was it because the pressure kept on and on to keep the Harmon name spotless? Or was there something deeper in him, something that just made him snap and say, "No more playing the FOD"? Behind each confident smile during press interviews was an unspoken tension, a strain that only those closest could see. Imagine the exhaustion, the pain that never quite goes away. Now, with this new update, we find out the story of Mark Harmon was never as simple as it seemed. The pressures, the hidden pain, the internal battles, Mark carried it all with a resilience that few could imagine. But what had put him on the back foot enough to warrant his stepping away? Why is this part of his story coming into the light at this moment? It isn't that straightforward, and his next chapter turned out to be more unpredictable than anyone could have ever predicted. What did finally cause him to walk away from it all? The real reason why Mark left the spotlight. Mark Harmon's abrupt exit from NCIS left fans' minds filled with questions. Why exit from a role in its 18th season that had made him a TV legend? Theories have been churning. Creative differences, burnout, even behind-the-scenes drama. But here's the kicker. The real reason isn't what you think it is. You won't believe what finally made him step away from the series. For years, the assumption of fans had been that this was a very simple story, the one in which Mark was ready to retire from active duty, kick back, and smell the roses after such a long-running career. There was, however, something more poignant brewing beneath the surface. Imagine, a man who, for the better part of the last 2 decades, has been a fixture on millions of screens is, for the first time ever, feeling the weight of his own fame bear down on him like never before. But here's the thing. Mark was having a hard time finding his identity, how to balance the character Gibbs that he played so easily with his sense of self. As it would turn out, playing a gruff, hard-nosed investigator isn't just a matter of acting. It came with its set of expectations and pressures. Think you've heard it all? Well, here's where it gets good. Recent insiders have come to say that Mark didn't leave out of boredom with the role, or even because of creative clashes with the producers. As a matter of fact, he came to realize something that even his closest friends were caught off guard by. He needed to rediscover himself. Imagine that, walking away from a job that brought you fame and fortune, not because you have to, but because you want to reconnect with who you are outside of it. There is more. His exit had not only to do with introspection. Friends close to Mark reveal that he grew increasingly cognizant of how much he had missed during his years on the show. Family dinners became missed calls, anniversaries moved into being just another shooting day, and those precious moments with his wife Pam and the kids often got pushed to the sidelines by exhausting shoot schedules. Was Mark finally ready to put his family first? Or was there another reason nobody saw coming? What's even more astonishing is that, contrary to speculation, Mark didn't leave NCIS with any bitterness. As a matter of fact, it was even said by the production crew that he left a very heartfelt note to one and all, thanking them for all the years. But if it wasn't discontent, and if he really loved his role, what could make a person walk away from the biggest hit of their career? Is there still more to this story than meets the eye? There are those who think Mark's retreat from the limelight says something more personal, a chapter of his life that is only just beginning. There's a rumor of a side project he's working on, a return to something he left behind decades ago. Was it to be a comeback, or has he really turned the page once and for all on Hollywood? The possibilities are endless, and if you think this is the last you've heard of Mark Harmon, think again as we unveil new plot twist. What the media has been hiding about his family life. For years, Mark Harmon's personal life was like a locked vault, protected, private, and far from the tabloids. But behind those closed doors, there was a side of Mark that even the most die-hard fans never got to see. You've heard about his TV career, but what about his real-life role of devoted husband and father? What the media hasn't told you just might change how you view him forever. And even though his character on screen was incredibly intense, Mark had always been a family man in his heart of hearts. But that's only scratching the surface of devotion that the media got to. Behind the scenes, his relationship with his wife, Pam Dauber, whom he has been married to for over 35 years, is more than just a love story hatched in Hollywood. When Pam stepped back from her own career to focus on raising their two sons, Mark deeply admired her sacrifice, even if it rarely made headlines. And now, with Mark stepping back from NCIS, it was finally his turn to put family first. But there's one part of this story that even his most loyal fans don't know. Imagine the pressure. A Hollywood power couple. Cameras always lurking around the corner. It wasn't easy, and yet Mark and Pam found a way to shield the family from the spotlight. When his health concerns became more serious, Pam was right by his side, supporting him every step of the way. Did he realize in those painful moments that family time was more important than on-screen success? Maybe. Then there was another twist, the one even their friends did not see coming. A close family friend let slip recently something a few knew. Mark's eldest son, Sean, had followed in his father's footsteps, acting and guesting on a few NCIS episodes. The kicker? While Mark was saying adieu to the character Gibbs, his son was stepping into precisely the same path that defined his career. Or is Mark ready to be a mentor, pass on the baton to the next generation? Or he's sitting aside and enjoying the show in a way he never could? But really, the heart-wrenching detail is the time Mark has been making up for. The man has been spotted spending more time at their home in Montana, catching up on holidays and family vacations he missed out on, simple things like barbecues and fishing trips, and the quiet moments no amount of money could buy. But wait, there's still one more part of this story that might just take your breath away. But what if Mark's retreat into family life isn't just about the present, but about something huge, a legacy he's building for the future? Is it possible all along that a man who played Gibbs, this unbreakable investigator, was simply trying to be a dad making up for lost time? That's one question that will continue to fester, and it begs fans' minds as to what could be in store for him next, whether this chapter of his life is truly as final as it feels. Stay tuned, because there is even more to this story than what the media has shown you. And let me tell you, you are in for something good. The heroic incident that changed everything. Or did it? Who can forget that story of Mark Harmon being a real-life hero? It's one of those kinds of stories that sound straight out of a movie, where Mark saves two teenagers trapped inside a burning car outside his home in Los Angeles. But if you think you know all the details, think again. Because what really was happening on that day is something few know. And it may have changed Mark's life more than anyone realized. It was a typical afternoon in 1996 that Mark heard a loud crash outside his house. He rushed out to find an overturned, burning Jeep. Without hesitation, he smashed the windows, pulled the teenagers from the wreckage, and carried them to safety. It's the kind of scene we'd expect Gibbs, his character on NCIS, to play out. But to Mark, this wasn't about playing hero. It was a gut reaction, an instinct he could not ignore. But there is more to tell in this story than a valorous act. Mark didn't talk much about that day, but those close to him noticed a change. It wasn't just one heroic moment, it was a turning point. Mark was always a private man. His characters spoke for him. But something broke after the rescue. Maybe the fragile line separating life from death had finally been perceived, a realization that kept haunting him. Or was it the near tragedy that many years later compelled him to take stock of his career, his choices in life, and the time he was stealing away from the family? Some even speculate this was where some of the most intense scenes in NCIS originally sprouted. Think about it. If you can recall, didn't Mark bring an even deeper sense of realism in those scenes whenever Gibbs is put in perilous life-or-death situations? Now here's a kick. To the world, he was a hero. But for Mark, it was an incidence of one's vulnerability. This rescue celebrated in headlines had him questioning his priorities, even the very role that he played on TV. Friends have hinted that the incident opened Mark's eyes to life's fragility, having him decelerate and reevaluate what was important. But if such a life-changing moment, why didn't he ever fully step away until years later? Why was he constantly diving headfirst into one intense, high-stakes NCIS scene after another if it was emotionally so heavy? A rumor goes that it was Mark's way to work through trauma, channeling all those raw emotions into his work. But here is where things get really interesting. At least according to several insiders, Mark's ultimate decision to leave NCIS wasn't just about aging or burnout. They feel it originates from that day, that very moment when he pulled those children out of the fire. It's almost as if he had one of those epiphanies. No matter how much time was invested in a set or how many awards he received, there was more to life. It begs the question whether this was the real reason for his stepping back from Hollywood years later, or is there another layer to this story we've yet to uncover? One thing is certain, Mark's actions on that fateful day changed his life forever. But what if there is still a hidden truth that he has kept locked away? Well, let's find out. The shocking truth behind his sudden disappearance. It felt like Mark Harmon disappeared into thin air. From being the face of NCIS, carrying a series nearly 2 decades, to being completely off the radar, it's kind of shocking. So why did he choose to disappear? Was it really his choice? Or was there more going on behind closed doors? Buckle up, because what you're about to hear may just change everything you thought you knew about Mark's exit. When Mark left NCIS, fans speculated it was time for him to retire. After all, 18 seasons is a long run, even for the best in the business. Sources close to the actor paint a completely different picture, about a man torn apart between the demands of Hollywood and a craving for a simpler, quieter life. The rumors of health scares only fanned the speculation. But what if this was not due to health problems? What if the pressures were from inside, from the very industry which wanted him to step aside for new faces and younger stars? But wait, it gets even more interesting. Anyone who's followed the rumor mill might remember whispers of friction behind the scenes, creative differences said to have made Mark feel he was being pushed out. The suggestion here is that Mark wasn't so much ready to leave as feeling he had little choice. And yet in leaving, the door was left creakily ajar, so the story isn't quite over just yet. And this is the part nobody expected, folks. Rumors are mill-whispering that there is a chance of his comeback, believe it or not. There's word going around that Mark is going to be back on television, not the way everyone expects, though. A buzz goes on saying he has contemplated a behind-the-camera role, exploring the world of direction and producing. So, will Mark plan to make a comeback in Hollywood but on his terms and in the game? Or does he play the longest of games, only the next move being known by a select few closest to him? Except, of course, for those mysterious absences from public events, the vanishing act that left fans scratching their heads as to whether everything was okay. Well, the theory goes it was just a ploy to keep people in suspense in preparation for his next big move. Is this how Mark sends a message? He's not dead, just invisible, and he can spring up any time with another surprise? Or is he out of the limelight, simply enjoying his life, content to let the speculations swirl as he savors quiet moments with his family? In fact, there's even one wild rumor making the rounds among fans. Could Mark have been laying low so that he could secure some kind of giant deal with a streaming service and set up a shocking comeback that no one saw coming? Picture the headlines. Mark Harmon returns to television with a new show that's even bigger than what he had with NCIS. It sounds almost too good to be true, but in Hollywood almost anything can happen. So, what is really going on with Mark Harmon? Has he really ridden off into the sunset? Or is he merely biding his time until he makes that shocking move? We might not have all the answers just yet, but one thing is certain. There's more to this than meets the eye. The unexpected news that's shaken Hollywood. Just about the time you think you have heard it all, another bombshell about Mark Harmon dropped, and everything we knew was turned upside down. News that's going to leave fans reeling and people who are privy to behind-the-scenes information whispering. In truth, the recent quiet life of Mark had taken on an altogether different turn with this latest update nobody saw coming. Trust me, it's not just another rumor out of Hollywood, but one of those game-changing revelations that leaves everybody in a daze. Reports have just come in that the reason behind Mark's disappearance from the spotlight is a bit more complex than previously thought. A source close to the Harmon family insinuates that ongoing legal battles which have siphoned his energy are the reasons for his absence from view. But what is the root of all this chaos? An issue, as stated by sources outside of the industry, a dispute hitting closer to home. Is this a spillover from some past misunderstanding in the entertainment arena, or is this a personal issue that hasn't been discovered yet? Truthfully, nobody is entirely sure as yet, but there's tension. And here's where it gets even weirder. Rumors are flying that a possible health scare is involved in Mark's reason for withdrawing. Nothing is confirmed, but one does start thinking, is this the real reason for his silence? One thing's for sure. The Mark Harmon of today is poles apart from that confident star that once flashed upon our screens week after week. Instead, we're seeing a man who's had to adapt to a reality far from the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. Is this a temporary setback, or is Mark facing something far more challenging than any of us could have imagined? But it is in that darkness that a faint glimpse of light can be seen. Close friends have let it slip that Mark hasn't shut the door on his comeback, but not as anyone fathomed. Or is he planning a back-office comeback, or just walking away for good and putting his personal life in the fore? In a nutshell, the story isn't over yet, as new revelations hint. And then, like clockwork, just when you probably think it cannot get any better, the whispers of a new project or an unexpected collaboration begin trickling out. As the dust settles on these recent revelations, one thing is clear. Mark Harmon's future remains a mystery. Will he stage a comeback, or has he truly left the spotlight for good? With so many questions lingering, only time will tell what's really next for this Hollywood legend. So, stay tuned, because if there's one thing we've learned, it's that Mark's story isn't over just yet.